Oh, good.
Yes, the crowd goes wild.
Yeah, well, the crowd goes mild,
I'm sure I've
clearly.
got something here. There we go. All four of
Hey.
them. They sound socially distanced, don't they?
Yes, they don't actually. They sound very close together. It sounds like they've crowded around a single microphone.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all vaccinated. It's all good. I'm
Yeah,
sure they're all
yeah, yeah.
vaccinated.
Yeah. Well, we're still in Queensland, which I don't I know where it used to be filmed, which was at Dreamworld on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it's filmed now. It's on a different channel. It's boring. Well, actually, it was always boring.
Is it not? No, I remember the first season. I got right into it.
Yeah, so did I actually. That was Sarah J,
Probably.
wasn't it? With the bum dance.
Yeah. Why not? It sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything from it, but just like all good memories from my childhood, it's really repressed and blocked out. So, but yeah, the first one, I don't know what they're up to now, but gosh, it must be season 23 or some phenomenal thing.
Yeah. Season 78.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're going to have the reunion soon from the number one. Then I'll get into it.
Oh, how exciting.
Oh, dear.
How exciting.
All right. Me.
You.
Me. This is all about me. Hello, and welcome to The Pouch, the podcast equivalent of a high school-induced dead leg that aims to take a not-so-serious look. Oh, man, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to hit the music.
But I just thought you were going to put it in post. I wasn't going to remind you. I was going to say, I'm sure he'll do that.
There we go.
Put it in post.
I was wondering why the vibe was all wrong.
Speaking too fast. I don't know. Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to The Pouch, the podcast equivalent of a high school-induced dead leg that aims to take a not-so-serious look at the week in Australian news and politics. I'm Greg. Well, the initial thrill of entering a bank with a mask on has certainly worn off. Savage.
And I'm Jake. I think the best thing about wearing a mask at work is perpetually smelling your own breath instead of everyone else's breath. Far Wharton. On today's episode, we talk moral obligations, contradictions, defending the homeland, and so very much more, Greg.
Super pumped, Jake. And Jake, while we're as snug as a bug in this proverbial rug, I want to know, why did Australia let far-right commentator Katie Hopkins into the country to be on Big Brother in the first place?
Spoiler alert, we've been building a great wall to keep all the rabbits out, but also the far-right UK commentators.
Fair enough. Is she UK?
Yeah, she is.
And in the spirit
She has that kind of accent anyway.
I thought she was US. Anyway, in the spirit, I haven't done a lot of research into it, to tell you the truth. In the spirit of reconciliation and recognition, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Jake and I are podcasting today, and we recognise their continuing connection to land, water, and community. We pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging.
We do. I must say, I do feel a little bit bad for Katie Hopkins. She spent a reasonable amount of money taking a returned Australian, taking their seat, on a plane, so that she could come to Australia and essentially flout our hotel quarantine rules.
Yeah, I think she thought she was being pretty edgy and get away with it. And
yeah, she's so edgy. Look at her go to the door under 30 seconds, because the quarantine rules, hotel quarantine rules, mean that when the door knocks, you have to wait at least 30 seconds, and that enables the air from outside to equalise between what's outside your door, so they open it and you don't get a rush of air in, just in case there happens to be some COVID particles floating around outside your room, and then they get pulled in. So yeah, it's all. She's just a very weird human being.
Is that
very
real?
Weird.
Is that real? That whole door thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, I may have embellished a little bit, but that's basically it.
Right. Yeah. Apparently, she was boasting about answering the door nude and answering the door without a mask on. So now she's been fined $1,000 and has been shipped off.
Yeah, classic deported. Katie, right?
Yeah. Short-lived, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't know, as much as I know for a fact that there would be people in Australia who certainly believe that the COVID thing is a hoax and that the whole lockdown thing is a hoax. Not a lot of people do. And so I think coming here and flouting the rules and saying, it's all a big hoax and all that sort of stuff, people just aren't buying it, I
think the big thing is not reading the room. It's like, pretty well all of Australia has locked down for a reasonable amount of time in order to prevent the spread of this virus.
Yeah.
And you're flouting those rules, which could potentially infect someone or someone's and get COVID back out into the community. So read the room. Don't spread the virus that we've been locking down perpetually in order to prevent the spread of the thing. Anyway, it's just like serious weirdo.
Speaking of,
and I'm being very kind there.
Speaking of edgy, Dan Illich, who's a fan of the show, friend of the show.
Yep.
He tweeted out, if you're in Sydney and you're experiencing the mildest of symptoms, please immediately go and visit Katie Hopkins in hotel quarantine. Which is a joke, obviously. We're not promoting the spreading of the virus.
Well, she's gone now anyway.
But speaking of, edgy, I thought that was pretty edgy. Yeah, she's got a checkered history anyway. But yeah, all right. Well, now that she's gone, let's keep it here in Australia, Jake. We're trying to jazz up this new segment, aren't we? Right? We've always had a bit of a couple of warm up stories that we've tried to do, but we're going to try and jazz it up just a little bit. So we're going to call this "No Need to Worry." We don't have a song for it. I'm sure Jake will.
No need to worry.
Like I said, I'm sure he'll come up with something. No need to worry. I'm not worrying. Are you worrying? So this week.
Worried.
Well, no, you shouldn't. That's the whole point, right? So in this segment, basically, the idea would be
no need to worry.
Exactly. Is that you thought there might have been a reason to worry, but then the politicians have come out and said, no dramas, no need to worry.
Calm your farm.
Yeah, calm your farm. No need to worry. This is about New South Wales Health has apologised for error after St Joseph's College students received Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine jabs. New South Wales Health has apologised after an error saw Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines administered to boarders at a prestigious Sydney Catholic school, despite most students in Australia not being eligible. St Joseph's College at Hunters Hill in Sydney's lower North Shore confirmed the students aged over 16 received the first dose of the vaccine after New South Wales Health approved a request by the college. Now, Brad Hazard was queried about this. And it will make it go a lot smoother if I have this lined up. And this is the audio. This is you just don't have to worry about anything. Everything is fine. I did see. I'll tell you about that in a second. Here you go. This is him being asked by a reporter. Should he be embarrassed?
What I find more embarrassing, James, is that you would make that sort of question accusation against frontline health staff who work their butts off and who tomorrow will have achieved a million vaccinations into arms. You know what? The school intended it well, there was a mistake, and so what? It's happened. Out of 1 million vaccinations, move on.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely no need to worry, Jake. We can just take it easy on that one. I did see I don't have it up in front of me, but I did see a Chaser article which said that New South Wales Health still yet to make an error that benefits poorer families. A coincidence that all of these errors tend to benefit the richer families. I think there's also a sub-story here about a school that was given permission to leave quarantine here and go to like a camp or something that's in the regional New South Wales because they've been doing it for 30 years. It's part of their tradition. They were actually all given the all clear to go and travel on this thing. So they're all out of lockdown and they're all doing this camp because they've been doing it for 30 years at this prestigious Sydney school. So, but again...
Well, I suppose they are effectively quarantining at the camp, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are other ways to think about that, but really interesting, of course, because presumably they would, in their letter that they sent to New South Wales Health, the school will have specified the number of vaccinations that that would have corresponded to the number of Indigenous kids, right?
Yeah.
Which presumably was probably less than 163.
That's right.
Is my guess.
Through an error.
Hey, they bought 163 vaccines out there, so my guess is either the school lied or something else has happened.
Yeah, look, I think probably it's a bit like if you went to an ATM and you accidentally got out, you put in $50 and you get out $100, you're not going to sort of, You're going to go, oh, that's a...
How exciting.
That's
what
a shame.
windfall.
Yeah.
What a windfall. What? This thing
That's a
took
shame.
100 from my account and gave me 100? That's...
Yeah.
God.
Anyway.
So look, my no need to worry.
Yeah, you're no
Greg.
need to worry, yeah?
Yeah, it's very exciting. So the Prime Minister, who, of course, he's been under significant political pressure because of the slow pace of the vaccination rollout in Australia. Pressure that has, of course, ramped up during the lockdown in Greater Sydney. He embarked on a media blitz last week to argue that the pace of the vaccination rollout was now going to accelerate.
So ramping up.
Are you ready? It's ramping up. It's about to accelerate significantly. During that media blitz, of course, Morrison told 2GB that in June, Australia was getting 1.7 million doses of Pfizer a month. He said this month, i.e. July, that would increase to 2.8 million doses. And by August, Australia would get 4.5 million doses. So, he said, quote, that is quite a ramp up, which I'm sure those listening would completely agree. That does sound, Scott, like quite a ramp up. Of course, the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer said immediately afterwards that there is no change to the number of doses that the company has contracted to deliver to deliver to Australia over 2021, contradicting, of course, those reports asserting that the Morrison government had secured a game-changing deal to triple its access to the jabs.
Yeah,
but nonetheless,
no need to worry.
Everything. Yeah, no need to worry. The government has it under control.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, they've slid in the polls though. I was just giving it a quick Google here. They sync in new poll numbers. I suppose it's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you've got a prime minister who's more than willing to do his bit and to be in quarantine. So he's sort of out of the public sphere at the moment. He's not travelling. He's not going anywhere. There's no, there's no campaigning for anything. There's nothing. He's just in lockdown in Kirribilli House. I'm sure that's terrible. But Labor has surged to a two-party lead of 53 to 47 compared with 51 to 49 in the previous poll in late June. The Australian reports the latest results is the worst for the coalition this term. So it's not a good look for him at the moment, is it, this whole vaccination thing?
Well, a lot of the commentary, and actually it's linked to my no need to worry story, but a lot of the commentary is that the fall in the polls relates to this supposed meeting between, well, it did happen. Pfizer have said that it happened, but the meeting between former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, Labor Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, and Pfizer, which was arranged by a number of prominent business owners and business proprietors from around the world whose companies are based in Australia, and those business owners were all like, "We really want to open up the country again. We can only do that if we're vaccinated. We want to go back to Australia. We can only do that if the country's vaccinated. Guys, can you get some more vaccines? Let's get Kevin Rudd out there to speak to Pfizer." Apparently, that did actually that did sway some commentary around Australia. So it seems that Mr. Kevin Rudd, one former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, has swayed the vote, or at least the opinion polls, towards Labor as a preferred government. Of course, Mr. Albanese, the opposition leader, is not the preferred Prime Minister. No. That remains Scott Morrison, but it is interesting to see how the parties fare.
That's right. I think Labor's still got a bit of an image problem with Albanese at the helm, if you will. Maybe they should be sending Kevin Rudd, Jake, to Tokyo to assist with Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. She's gone off to Tokyo, and the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, I think, for their bid in the 2032 Olympic Games. We should be finding out about that soon, shouldn't we? It's going to be a terrible shame if you don't get it.
We should. I think I'm reasonably certain that they announced the next. So they announced the or whatever it is, because I think ours are the 2032 games. 2032, 2036. I can't recall which, but
no, it's 2032.
They announced that they announced it at the closing ceremony from memory.
Oh, okay.
So we'll know in about I think 2.5 weeks time.
Yeah, sure. If they don't all get coronavirus first, yeah, sure.
Exactly. It is, of course, a little bit interesting that less than a month ago, the Prime Minister was over in the UK touting this new free trade deal with the UK.
Yeah.
As part of that climate change conference that was going on. And, pretty well all of the federal parliament got behind that effort that, the Prime Minister needs to be over there in the UK to do these deals. And, of course, when a Labor Premier goes to Japan in order to secure the Olympics, which, by all rights, bringing an Olympics to your country is worth hundreds of millions, if not billions upon billions of dollars in economic activity, not just short term, but also long term.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's been very quiet from the federal government in terms of support of that activity.
Yeah, I heard an interview during the week about it, and they're basically saying, "Oh, look, we think that people need to do what they need to do, but the public's certainly not happy, and in them addressing this hypocrisy."
Yes.
It's not me that's saying she's a hypocrite. The public are saying she's
the public.
hypocrite.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. Yeah,
got to listen to the public. Yeah.
But anyway, look, that's the thing, isn't it? When asked about why we got Katie Hopkins into the country, the Home Affairs Minister was saying that it was all about money. She basically said that because it brought economic benefit to the country, we let someone with that particular character into the country, only to be booted out minutes later. But yeah, so why can't you just get behind the sort of I don't know, this sort of event that would be great news for the country if we do get it. I certainly have my fingers crossed, Jake.
Yeah,
on both hands. Hands.
Yeah, well, it was huge. It was huge when the Gold Coast got the Commonwealth Games only a couple of years ago. It was absolutely massive. In terms of economic activity, it was absolutely enormous. The amount of development that occurred in order to support it. The amount of new facilities that were implemented in order to support it. Yeah, it's great for Australia. It's certainly great for Queensland.
Absolutely, and all those songs that come along with it, it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
Now, Jake, speaking of, I was going to try and make a link between what we're talking about with Matthias Cormann getting a helicopter, so I might just throw that in there. It was okay that we gave Matthias Cormann a helicopter to fly around the country. Speaking of helicopters, Australia...
What a segue.
I just create my own now. Chemen Kwok did actually comment and say, you haven't released videos for a long time. Miss you guys. We miss you too, Chemen. Thank you very much for commenting. If you do want to leave a comment in whatever platform you're on, you can do that. We'll bring it up on the screen, have a bit of a chat about it. Lovely to see you all. And if you are interested in sending an email, you can do so to thepouchpodcast@gmail.com. And there's a Patreon out there too. But yes, we do have, Jake, we do have some extra Chinooks. So this was about an ADF have been delivered some Chinook helicopters, which are just enormous, aren't they?
They're enormous. They're the double bladed or double rotors, double engine.
They're the double decker bus of Australia, aren't they?
They're the double decker, exactly. Chinooks are amazing because you can transport a tank in them. You can transport an APC, an armored personnel carrier. You can transport a bunch of a fully loaded unit in their Hummers.
Yeah,
like that. They are absolutely enormous troop or support carriers.
Could they have fit some stranded Australians in the back of the Chinook? Anyway, I don't know. We've lost Jake. Oh no, we've lost him. Oh dear. Now it's all just up to me, isn't it? All right, it does look good. He does look good frozen like that. I'm going to read you this story, ladies and gentlemen. Australia has purchased more Chinook helicopters at a cost of more than $500 million. Chinooks have been used by the Australian Defence Force for 50 years and have proved dependable at war and during disasters like the Australian bushfires. A fleet of 47 newer helicopters, the MHR-90s, remain grounded over safety concerns. Australia's taken delivery of those Chinooks as part of the $500 million boost to its fleet of heavy lifting helicopters. Oh no, what do I do? Do I get rid of him? I think I've got to get rid of him. How do I hang up on him? Okay, there we go. He'll call back, ladies and gentlemen. It is fine, and we'll just pretend like none of this happened. The first The first two of an extra 4 Chinooks arrived from the US to Townsville. Congratulations, Townsville. Carried aboard the largest military transport aircraft used by the US Air Force. The Chinook is Defence's largest helicopter, with a long and proven track record of supporting ADF operations in Australia, our new region and further afield. Defence Minister Peter Dutton said Chinooks have been in service in Australia for 50 years and again proved their dependability during the 2019 to 2020 bushfires, when they were used to evacuate people in cut-off towns and deliver firefighters, food and water to fire-ravaged regions. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have been delivered those helicopters. They're very expensive. I'm very surprised by how expensive these particular helicopters are. But anyway, maybe I've never really bought a helicopter, except I did watch a YouTube video on how much it costs to own your own helicopter once for some strange reason. I was recommended that one. Here he is. Look at that. Right on cue. Right on cue. Oh, just like nothing happened.
I know, right?
Just like nothing happened. So anyway, I have read the story about the Chinooks, Jake. I don't know if you have anything to add about the Chinooks, or if you just want to segue.
Let's segue into the next one.
Are you sure? Do you have any opinions about the Chinooks?
Question,
yeah.
Are you in a good position to use the recording provided by Ecamm today?
Yeah. I can use the recording by Ecamm, Jake. No problem at all.
Oh, phew. Okay, good.
Yeah,
because yes, the recording did fail. All right. Well, I won't try to re-record then.
That's okay. No, don't try and re-record. That's all good. I've got it all sorted out. How's your internet there, Jake? You're a little glitchy, but we'll get through it.
I think it's okay.
Okay. Oh dear, Jan.
And then I was instantly proven wrong.
Jan Magan Zweski has left a comment. I was supposed to come to Australia for a uni exchange, going to South Korea instead. Win or not? It depends, really. If you wanted to go to Bunnings regularly, probably not such a great thing. I don't think they have Bunnings in South Korea. But if you wanted to eat delicious, Asian food for breakfasts, definitely a win.
Yeah, kimchi on everything.
Yeah. If you wanted to have kimchi on everything without everyone staring at you like you're a weirdo, absolutely.
Yeah, just go. You wanted Tim Tams. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Tim Tams are great. Look, I have it on good authority, though, that you can actually buy Tim Tams in South Korea at one of those international food stores. I would strongly suggest that you combine it with kimchi. And that way you've got a foreign delicacy and a local delicacy.
Kim Tams.
Kim Tams? Okay. Yeah. Why not?
Yep. Anyway, you've got our email address, Jan.
Kimchi.
Now, Jan, if you've got our email address, if you ever get stuck, if you ever want Tim Tams and you can't find them, if you want Twisties and you can't find them, if you want a Bunnings snag and you can't find it, you just send us an email to thepouchthepodcast@gmail.com, and I promise you we will send you a packet of Tim Tams to South Korea. We will send you whatever you want to South Korea. So we will put together a care package for you, but you have to email us at thepouchthepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. It's actually a service that Greg provides. Yep.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Absolutely. Get Tim Tams to South Koreans. Hey, why not? They send me kimchi. I send them Kim Tams. Oh, dear. Well, that was a nice segue. Thank you for that, Jan. You really sort of saved our bacon there. Now, former Nationals president...
Speaking of pork barrelling?
Yeah, speaking of pork barrelling, former Nationals president says party losing its way under Barnaby Joyce and urges women to speak up. That doesn't sound very good. This is not uplifting.
No, but I suppose this is what we expected in the wake of an appointment of Barnaby Joyce back to the party. He was not favourably looked upon by the 52% of the Kim Tams. I preferred Tim
Cheese.
Tim Cheese. Yeah, there we go.
Tim Cheese.
For the 52% of Australia who are not male, who have opinions about Barnaby Joyce and the way that he left the party. Of course, there was alleged sexual harassment. There are his ongoing thoughts and feelings about birth control and about abortion rights or a woman's right to choose. There is all of the documented stuff that occurred around him when he left his family for his former staffer, ended up having children with them, and all of the stuff that's been documented about Barnaby Joyce's personal choices, as well as, of course, the political positions that he holds, are a great reason for women to perhaps not like the National Party. He does, of course, have plenty of women supporters within his cabinet, and certainly within the National Party. But I suppose this former Nationals president, Christine Ferguson, she's issued a call to arms to young women in the party, saying that they need to speak up about their bad experiences to drive cultural change, whilst also criticising the party for losing touch with its grassroots members, i.e. The farmers, the fishers, the shooters, the drivers, those people living out west, and not just the miners.
Yes.
So Ferguson, who is a widely respected figure in the party, who has served as both federal and New South Wales president, also raised concern that the Nationals were not doing enough to foster young talent, saying that she was worried the party was not always choosing its brightest and best for public office, instead just those who are perhaps more experienced or who have been in the roles longest. So the intervention, of course, comes amid heated discussion with the Nationals about the future direction of the party after the reinstatement of Barnaby Joyce, as we said, the pre-selection of its former state director, Ross Cardell, for Plum State Senate position in New South Wales, and after the Queensland Senator Matt Canavan said farmers were no longer a core constituency of the Nationals. Greg, can you believe it?
Who are they? Who are the main constituents then?
The miners, frankly.
Right.
Because mining has changed from just coal to, there's plenty of liquid natural gas. There's and a lot of that liquid natural gas, the LNG, that often sits in farms. It sits in shale deposits under farms. You've got massive swaths of land that are set up for livestock that ends up going to LNG deposits and LNG mining. So look, there's
my kids are heavy into mining, Jack. Especially during during home learning. They're very regularly. There's some app on the computer that they're using all the time for mining, finding blocks and mining those, and crafting things out of the things that they mine.
It's very crafty. They are miners after all.
That's right. I get it. They're miners.
Sorry, I had to make
Minecraft.
That joke
It's good. Yeah, there's lots of jokes happening here. People try and keep up. All right, there's lots of levels happening here. Now, a good place for women at the moment, obviously, to put in their complaints about what's happening in Parliament and all those sorts of things. Any sort of harassment.
Podcast at gmail.com?
No, definitely not. Please don't. No. Yeah, direct them to the National Inquiry into Sexual Harassment, which heard an interview the other day, and they're getting in a lot of responses into that and putting together their recommendations and things like that. So anyway, that's certainly the right place to be doing that. I don't know. The whole Nationals thing is just weird to me. I still watched, I don't know if you caught it, but I caught Barnaby Joyce on Insiders on the weekend. And, Spearsy was asking him about, the host, David Spears, was asking him about, what is his take on net zero carbon emissions by 2050? And he just kept saying, well, show me the menu. Show me the menu. I can't make a decision about what to eat if you haven't showed me the menu. Like, how much does everything cost? And David Spears is like, but you're the one in the government. It's not my job to tell you this information. Like, you're the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. You should have this information. He's saying, well, we don't have that information, so we can't make a decision about it.
But you know why? It's because the Nationals are pushing for investment in coal power plants.
Yeah, they love coal
technology that the private industry has moved on. That there is no way that unless the government gets behind coal-fired power plants or gas-fired power plants, the private industry is not doing it. There is no long-term money in it. Sorry, Greg, I spoke over the top of you. You were making
no, you didn't at all. You brought up a really valid point. Particularly in regards to the fact that they opened up bids to the private sector, and the evidence was that the private sector wasn't interested. That they had
a year. They had a year to make.
Right, they had a year.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's 365 days, Jake.
Yeah, 300. Well, yeah, exactly. Was it a leap year? We don't know. It could have been. There might have been an extra day in there.
Yeah, look, the whole Barnaby thing's a bit weird. He is the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. We do certainly respect that, and respect the democracy of the situation, if we can call it that.
I actually like, to be honest, I like Barnaby. I've always liked Barnaby because he reminds me of just about every, every vocal farmer that I ever spoke to growing up. Because I grew up in farmland. I spent a lot of time working on farms and working around farms, being carted to and from farms to help out whatever neighbour or whatever, whoever needed help with their fence, whatever.
You make it sound like you're living in the 30s or something, Jake, like a horse and cart.
Well, let me tell you,
get some gingham.
There was a bit of horse and cart, but he just reminds me of every farmer growing up, and I remember that time very fondly. And as a consequence, I think of him reasonably fondly as well. His politics are a little bit out there, but certainly as a person, I think I prefer him more to Michael McCormack.
Yeah, I think for me, I really respect the politicians, and I think I spoke about this last week on the show. I really respect the politicians who are forthright. Like, even if I disagree with you, at least I know where we stand. And then if a whole bunch of people vote for you, then I know that, I need to do some exploring and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know where Barnaby Joyce stands on a whole bunch of stuff. He doesn't actually come out and say, this is what I think, and he's got this reputation for it. And that's why people tend to say, I like him because he's so strong-willed and he says what he thinks. But ask him about zero carbon emissions by 2050, net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and he ums and ahs and talks about menus and doesn't really get to the gist of what's happening. You said his point more eloquently than he did.
This is a power play at the moment. Strategically, it's a power play, right? Because he is essentially making it very clear to the government, who are in power by virtue of the fact that they have the Nationals coalition behind them, right? And he is essentially making a very salient point to the government, to the Liberal National Party, or to the Liberal Party, that right now he is not behind this stuff. So if you want the Nationals Party behind it, he is willing to discuss it, but he must see the menu. But invariably, you cannot get your, just to follow the analogy, you cannot get your menu, you cannot get your breakdown of prices, your economics, etc., unless you are willing to spend money to look at it. And right now, they have no strategy. They have no strategy to look at it. No. All they have is empty words from the Prime Minister at various international conferences saying, "Yeah, we might get there by 2050. Hey, if we get there, that's great. Yeah. If we don't get there, that's look. It's just what it is. But it's weasel words from the Prime Minister, and a bit of a power play by the national leader, I dare say.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly not shy of playing politics in the coalition. They're meant to be a coalition. Goodness me, it's falling apart.
Well, you can't
the federation's
spell
falling
coalition without coal.
It's a good one. I do like that one. I do have that written down. I'm surprised I didn't use it earlier. You've got the federation falling apart at the moment, borders being blocked off to everyone, states against states, the people are calling the Prime Minister the Prime Minister for New South Wales. You've got Barnaby Joyce, being voted in so that he can give it to Scott Morrison and all this sort of stuff. You've got, Gladys Berejiklian scoffing at Dan Andrews, all these sorts of things. It's just a real shame, it's just such an immature behaviour. But Jake, here at the Pouch the podcast, we don't get into that, do we? We don't focus too much. We don't play politics here at the Pouch podcast. We get very, very serious. And speaking of not playing politics, John Howard has recently come out and said that we have a moral obligation. One of the really important things that has been happening over the last few weeks is that American troops and Australian troops are all withdrawing from Afghanistan and coming home. This is leaving open some ideas that they're going to, that strong-willed military people are going to be attacking Afghan interpreters who are helping Australians and US troops while there. We're just abandoning them and leaving them. And former Australian Prime Minister John Howard has added to calls for the federal government to grant protection visas for Afghan subcontractors who fear for their lives under resurgent Taliban rule. Howard, who first sent Australian troops to the war-torn country in 2001, leading to 2 decades of involvement in the conflict, said that the nation has an ethical duty to provide safe haven for Afghans who aided their cause. It was a moral obligation, and we shamefully disregarded it many years ago when we pulled out of Vietnam. The 81-year-old told SBS TV, "I do not want to see a repetition of that failure in relation to Afghanistan." His comments come as an Afghan interpreter who worked with Australian forces and fears Taliban retribution, has had his flight to Australia with his family cancelled after caps on international arrivals were halved. So it's all just this really big sort of mush of really terrible events, isn't it? And kudos to John Howard for coming out and speaking out about that, like a real issue that that is concerning, especially our 2-decade involvement in the war.
It's pretty appropriate for him to talk about it because this is the war that he launched. This is one of his enduring legacies. In addition to Australian gun control,
the GST.
The GST and several other things, one or two other things. He was instrumental in immediately after September 11. He backed up the Americans. He didn't go in there under false pretenses like the UK government did. He essentially said, "Look, America has been attacked. We know who the culprit is. We'll be going in to support our ally." As a consequence, I think that his record on that premise will be, it's one for the history books, but it's one that will be looked upon reasonably favourably. It's, of course, interesting that he is commenting about this now, and he has been a stalwart within the Liberal Party for easily 40, 50 years even, and he was kicked out in 2007. And he has been around and he's been active throughout the intervening time, and he has not campaigned for this, for bringing in those interpreters and those support people, those Afghan people who worked with the Australian Defence Force. He has not campaigned for that really until now. He's potentially been in the background, but he hasn't been doing this publicly for a significant, for longer than he's obviously been doing it. And that's unfortunate because that war has been going since 2001. It's been going for 20 years. And we are now leaving, and we are leaving behind people who are vulnerable to being attacked. It has happened multiple times before. People die as a result of Australia pulling out, and there's that guy who helped the Australian Defence Force, or who helped the Americans, or who helped the foreigners, the foreign invaders, and those people are unfortunately extraordinarily vulnerable to attack now. Yeah. And we've left. We have absolved ourselves of the responsibility of those people, but we can't and we shouldn't. Those are people, like the Afghan people in general, have been affected by this war that was waged by the coalition of the willing, so to speak. Yeah. But our enduring legacy is what we decide to leave behind. We are leaving behind a war-torn country, an unstable war-torn country. The absolute least that we could do is get a few people who helped us along the way, who helped us, sure, for their own personal financial benefit and their family's own financial benefit, but they also helped us with some amount of promise to getting out of that situation. Yeah. And we owe it to them to get them out after we have caused, not just that initial issue of creating a war, but the enduring issue of the Taliban coming back in and taking over again.
Yeah, and, if you think about it from a sort of almost like a patriotic sense, you've got a generation of people coming through now who will hear about this news and see this news on television, and they'll be curious as to what the whole war was about, and they'll go back and check it out. They'll probably, get a bit of a hit from that, in the sense that they'll probably think it wasn't great that Australia went into this war, and this war, probably won't be looked on, depending on which articles you read, obviously won't be looked upon too favourably in the history books and all that sort of stuff. I think that that's open for interpretation. And then they think, well, if we've just, and the news that they're getting is that we're just abandoned these people who have given their lives, it doesn't give you that sense of patriotic nature, and it sort of skews how you view the rest of the war as well. It does say here that former Afghanistan veteran and army lawyer Glenn Colomites said the window of opportunity to support eligible Afghans was rapidly closing given the recent departure of US and Australian troops, and the immigration process had suffered a complete breakdown. He and his team at GAP Veterans and Legal Services are now representing the group of 140 guards as a class client in an effort to speed up their applications. We've had to take this step because the Afghan LEE program is completely dysfunctional, Colomite said. This way, the government sits at arm's length from the application process, and they can get on with the job of vetting and approving or rejecting or otherwise the applicants. Procedural fairness is a key term here because these people have been applying to defence and DFAT through the LEE program, and then having their applications rejected because they couldn't jump through the hoops. Now, that's interesting to me as well, because, I mean, we have, sports people jumping through the hoops. We have, we have politicians jumping through the hoops. We have, all sorts of people jumping through the hoops. We have Katie Hopkins jumping through the hoops. We have all of these...
Ignoring the hoops even.
Yeah, ignoring the hoops. Well, she was kicked out. But, I don't know. It seems to me like there are always exceptions, and this idea that, it can't happen because we have to follow the process. Well, you seem to be able to make a lot of, exceptions to the rules.
The process, absolutely. And the thing is, the process is designed to vet for people who are a risk to Australia, right?
Yeah.
And I think pretty well every Australian would agree that it's important that we get people who are in line with our values, people who are going to, not want to re-prosecute, previous acts of terror in Australia. We want people who want harmony in Australia, right? Which includes them. We want an inclusive people. And so the vetting process has to be stringent. What I think he's referring to there, and I've heard several commentators talking about it, is that if English is not your first language and you don't have necessarily great access to a stable internet connection and regular access to email and the ability to get notarized documents signed and the ability to, get a passport renewed and updated, and if because, for example, Australia no longer has an embassy in the country, essentially what these people have put out here is we've got this LEE process, but we also have a number of, reasonably significant impediments to that process. So while it's great that we have a streamlined process, it ain't so streamlined if you're not in Australia or in a country with all of those, aforementioned things that are necessary: stable internet, access to notaries, access to, regular email, and a whole bunch of other things. So yes, important that we vet people appropriately, but let's not pretend that the process is as streamlined as we think it is when you're living in Afghanistan.
Very well put, Jake. Very well put. Now, speaking of vetting people, Jake, this story has had me bewildered over the last few days. It's had me captivated, if you will. And this has to do with some former New South Wales Labor ministers, two in particular, Eddie Obeid and Ian McDonald, and Obeid's son Moses. They've all been found guilty of conspiring over a lucrative mine license. So this story is specific to New South Wales, but I think it has implications in general as well. It says here that Eddie Obeid, 77, his middle son Moses, 51, and McDonald, 72, stood trial accused of conspiring over a coal exploration license granted over the Obeid family farm in the Bylong Valley near Mudgee, and when Mr. McDonald was Resources Minister from 2007 to 2009. Now, I do actually have a little bit of audio here, Jake. My understanding is that this is from 2013. Four Corners did a story on this particular event, and this was what was said at the opening of the hearing in 2013 in regards to this Eddie Obeid trial. so now he's been found guilty, and they were awaiting what do you call it, a sentencing in a couple of months, but we'll get to that. But yeah, this was from 2013, so this has been going on for a long time.
Mr. Watson. The importance of this investigation stems from the identity and rank of the public officials involved. This public inquiry will be investigating whether corruption was involved. If it is corruption, then it is corruption on a scale probably unexceeded since the days of the Rum Corps. In all, hundreds of millions of dollars are involved. Efforts were made to keep secret the involvement of a politician, and intricate measures were taken to conceal payments made to him and to his family. ICAC has unpicked those, but the detail is exquisite.
So there you go. It was huge back then, and it's huge now. The Obeid family made $30 million from the deal. So this was all about land being acquired for mining. Was it for mining? For the mine license.
Mining exploration.
So the Obeid family got $30 million from this happening, and this was corruption from the inside of the New South Wales government. It was just absolutely huge news back then, and now it's come to our eyeballs, Jake, in the sense that he's just been they've all been found guilty of the mine license conspiracy. What's your take on this? What's your understanding of this particular story?
Look, Eddie Obeid was found to be corrupt a number of times throughout his the latter part of his career. Due to he was a minister, and he did some reasonably naughty things while he was a minister. There was allegations, I think, of nepotism, of taking bribes, of committing fraud. It was pretty widespread. So it's probably not all that surprising that he's been found guilty of conspiring over this mine license.
Yeah, it says here that he was found guilty of committing 5 of the 8 acts of misconduct that he was accused of. And the judge retired in February to try and to consider her verdict. So she's been deliberating over this for a long time.
Well, it was massive. Apparently, 6,000 pages of exhibits, 38 witnesses. Like that, it's a huge amount of.
It's not a good look, is it?
Information, yeah, absolutely.
When you're trying to prove your innocence, and someone comes in with 6,000 pages, you'd be like, "Oh, they've done their homework."
Yeah. So, and what has been said is that he's likely to return to jail after this guilty verdict. So,
right.
And it's all from this rigged tender. To get this coal exploration license. It's just messy. It's so sickening when politicians commit these acts of fraud and nepotism in order to benefit essentially themselves, their families, and their mates. Things that are part of or subject to the Commonwealth, not referring to federal government, but the premise of Commonwealth. We all put in for this wealth. We all put in for we all put in taxes. We all put in levies. We're all part of this Commonwealth, right? And when the government rigs certain decisions in order to benefit individuals instead of enabling open tender for things, it's unfair. It's sickening. It doesn't it doesn't inspire confidence. It doesn't inspire and it's anti-capitalist. Like it's all of the things that we're against.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting part for me too is that a statement from New South Wales Labor said the verdict showed that no one is above the law. There is no room for corruption in public life or in business or in any profession for that matter, the statement said. So, if this was a Liberal government person, I think that news would probably be a bit more over it a bit more. I think people probably be a bit more sort of vocal about this particular thing. Sometimes I think Labor gets a bit of a free pass on this sort of stuff. But having said that, it's interesting to me that these things go on for so long. I mean, he was minister from 2007 to 2009. That was McDonald. Sorry, McDonald was a resource minister from 2007 to 2009. It's interesting to me that, we're in 2021 and this is still going on. So who knows what sort of corruption charges might be laid in terms of, things like what we've seen with our sports rorts and our, the car park sagas and all that sort of stuff. I mean, sometimes maybe these things just take a really long time.
They do. But
we
they
sort of
start
expect
with
it to be like in the
allegations.
movies, right? You sort of expect, there's this corruption, there's this evidence of growth. They
happens,
kick
and
down
then
the
the next
door
day
and then they're
they're
done.
all-
That's
exactly.
right. Yeah, we got military rule because our government's just fallen to rubbish, It just doesn't seem like it happens that way.
No, well, it definitely doesn't. I mean, it starts with an allegation. Like somebody has to blow the whistle. Somebody has to essentially find that this is an issue, that it's something like a conflict of interest, and that potential misconduct has been found. Maybe it's been floating in the background. Maybe this is a Liberal witch hunt. Maybe the Liberal Party have decided that all the stuff that the Labor Party did while in power was awful. We need to investigate every single little skerrick of things that occurred, and maybe that's why these things have come to the fore. I'm glad that they have, because it's ridiculous that these things are allowed to be perpetuated by people who are supposedly capitalist, by people who are supposedly
they're elected officials
acting in the public interest.
Yeah,
Exactly,
that's right.
Exactly.
And that's why they get elected, right? Because they purport to be
Yeah.
representing you, right? They're representatives of the people, and it is really disgusting that there are people like that out there. Anyway, I'll try and remember to put a link for the Four Corners episode that aired in 2013 about the whole situation. So there's about 45 minutes of documentation there, which is really, really interesting and obviously very relevant for what's happening now. How are you feeling after all that? That was a very serious show, wasn't it?
It was a serious show. It was a big show.
Maybe we need to change our slogan.
Yeah. Less seriously.
Not so seriously most of the time.
Yeah. Sometimes we're serious.
I guess the clue is in the title.
Actually,
not so
that's
seriously.
not bad, right? The
Yeah.
Pouch, the podcast. Sometimes we're serious.
Sometimes. Oh, that's loud. Let's bring that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Special thank you to our listeners on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. Thank you to those people who left a comment in this comment section below. You've got about another 10 seconds to leave a comment in the comment section below before the time delay. But if you want to do that, I can probably give you a little bit of a shout out. Jake, when our listeners have figured out whether or not they're going to jump on the bandwagon and watch Big Brother 2021 this year, what would you like them to do?
Love it if they could go to patreon.com/the Pouch, the podcast, and consider becoming a patron. It really helps to keep the lights on to support the show. But if you're not ready for that level of intimacy, that's cool too. Why not go to your podcast player of choice and give us a favourable rating? Somewhere between 4.5 to 7 stars.
Yeah, give us a 7-star rating. That'd
Give
be
us a
good.
7-star rating, yeah. Throw on the extra stars for Greg's just general je ne sais quoi.
I think so. I think I do. I have to point out that, like, I don't. I'm looking at myself in the thing here.
Yeah.
I could look worse for someone who's been in lockdown for 4 years or something, right? Like now, I'm a school teacher and I've been asked to literally work from home for the next 2 weeks. Like, I'm not allowed to go to work for the next 2 weeks. I'm just like stuck in this house, and I haven't been outside. No, I do go outside regularly, but anyway, I could look worse.
Yeah. It could look worse.
So I'll take
actually,
the je ne sais quoi.
And maybe we'll
play the song again.
maybe we take the cue and change the byline for the podcast. The Pouch, the podcast. I could look worse.
The Pouch, the podcast. There's worse podcasts out there.
I love it.
I do like it. If you want to share the love, you can do so by telling your friends, families, and foes to head to thepouchthepodcast.com, where they can choose their favorite podcast player of choice and subscribe that way. Jake, I'm doing a songwriting course.
Oh yeah, that's so fantastic.
Yeah. I found one online. I was like, well, while I'm in lockdown, I may as well just get the keyboard out.
100%. That's so fantastic. Well, if you write a if you write a winner,
I'll put it up. I wrote this little ditty for the podcast. Apparently it sounds better at double speed, but that's all right.
well, 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5 speed. Oh dear. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, Jake. I know that you've had a very, very busy couple of weeks, and we're not allowed to talk about it. Shh.
They never stop. They never stop, Greg. They never stop about it. They're not bugging.
Whereas me, I'm just living the dream.
I love them.
I just live the dream. I don't get phone calls.
In the Big Brother house.
No one rings. Yeah. Anyway, email us pouchpodcast@gmail.com. We'll send you a sticker or 4. I think I got a box under here somewhere.
or Tim Tams.
Or what do we call them?
Kimchi,
Kim
Tim Tams,
Cams.
Kim Tams, or Tim Cheese.
Either way, delicious.
Yeah, that does not sound delicious.